Good morning, I'm Kenneth Moton.
And I'm Janae Norman. Here are the top 5 things to know this Monday. Number 1, President Trump is not backing down in the ongoing trade war with China.
The president tweeting Sunday, "We are right where we want to be with China," and claiming the U.S. will bring in billions of dollars in tariffs. But the president's chief economic advisor, Larry Kudlow, contradicted that claim, admitting to Fox News that American businesses will pay the tariffs.
The negotiations are ongoing, and the president appears to have the support of Republicans, though some are expressing concerns.
Number 2, a flood warning remains in effect after torrential downpours inundated Gulf Coast communities this weekend.
Emergency services all over the South had to pull people from flooded homes and vehicles. The high water may also have contributed to a freight train derailment. Look at that. Those storm systems are now soaking the eastern half of the country.
Severe storms are also possible today in southwestern Texas. Less severe storms are possible in Florida and the southeast.
We head to Texas for number 3, where the man charged with tampering with evidence in the case of a missing 4-year-old Houston girl is due in court today.
Malia Davis disappeared more than a week ago, seen here in surveillance photos with Darion Vince entering their apartment. Police say they found blood that may be Malia's inside, and there was evidence that someone tried to clean it up.
Investigators also say Vince left the apartment with a trash bag and a laundry basket. He has claimed that Malia was kidnapped.
On to number 4, there's a sibling rivalry in the NBA Finals.
Steph Curry and Seth Curry will be the first brothers to meet in a conference final when the Warriors take on the Blazers to see who's the best in the West. Their parents say a coin flip will decide who roots for which son. And there's drama in the East, too, after the Raptors knocked out the 76ers with...
Boy.
That basket bounced
boink, boink.
4 times before going in at the buzzer. The Raptors and 76ers were tied with under 5 seconds left. Toronto's Kawhi Leonard had one last chance to score, and he did it.
Yeah, that ball bounced off the rim, as you mentioned, 4 times and in for the game-winning shot. The Raptors now move on to play the Milwaukee Bucks.
And finally, number 5, forget about picking up one very special cup of coffee if you're pinching pennies.
Clutch Coffee is selling a brew that goes for $75 per cup.
Say that again?
$75
What?
per cup, making it the most expensive in the world. The beans come from heaven. No, actually, they come from Panama and cost more than $800 per pound. Clutch's owner had to bid to get hold of the only 10 pounds of the beans in the U.S.
It's way too late for us to be talking about coffee. We're not
It really
drinking
is.
any.
And maybe you should as well. And if you do, make sure it's not $75 a cup.
It's morning, America. So that $75 cup of coffee is going to bring us to our question of the day. Would you pay $75 for a cup of coffee? Comment or tweet ABC News Live to tell us what you think. Kenneth, yay or nay?
Big old nay.
Word.
I'm going to pay some bills instead.
Right?
Drinking a $75. No, I will spend $75 on meals.
Oh, I'll spend $75 on a whole bunch of things, just not a single cup of coffee.
On her curls.
These girls.
Getting them
They'll
done.
cost you more than that.
I know, that's right. Well, good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Good Monday
Good to
morning.
have you with us.
Thank you for joining us. We will get to the breaking news overnight. Saudi Arabia says 2 of its oil tankers have been targeted off the coast of the United Arab Emirates in a sabotage attack. One of the vessels was about to be loaded with oil for the United States. Those tankers were damaged, but there were no casualties and no oil spill. It's unclear who is responsible, but that incident follows a U.S. warning that Iran could be targeting ships. And that prompted the U.S. to send B-52 bombers to the region. Iran has requested more information on what happened overnight. Well, now to today's big story. President Trump unleashing more than a dozen new tweets, sounding off on the trade war, congressional investigations, even about his own handpicked FBI director.
The president is pushing back as Democrats move forward with a string of investigations after the Mueller report. Meanwhile, his top economic advisor has now acknowledged that American consumers will actually pay for the new tariffs on China as the trade war once again rattles the markets.
ABC's Trevor Alt is in Washington with those new details. Good morning, Trevor.
Janae, good morning to you. Kenneth, good morning to you as well. Yeah, we're waiting to see what happens on the markets today. It could be kind of a shaky start. We know that China has promised necessary countermeasures in response to this tariff hike, but we don't know what those countermeasures are or when they could take effect. Something could happen later today, but regardless, the president is standing firm in this trade war. President Trump not backing down, tweeting Sunday, "We are right where we want to be with China," and claiming the U.S. will bring in billions of dollars in tariffs. But earlier in the day, the president's chief economic advisor, Larry Kudlow, contradicting the president's claim, admitting to Fox News that American businesses will pay those tariffs, saying both sides will feel the pinch from the trade war and that plans to raise tariffs on all Chinese imports could take some time.
We don't think the Chinese have come far enough. How long does it take? I don't know. It could be a couple of months, thereabouts.
The president appears to have the support of Republicans, though some, like Senator Rand Paul, are expressing concerns.
Get this done, because the longer we're involved in a tariff battle or a trade war, the better chance there is that we could actually enter into a recession because of it.
The president also using the negotiations as a rallying point, later tweeting that China is hoping former Vice President Joe Biden or any other Democrat gets elected in 2020 because he says China loves ripping off America. That one of many tweets lashing out at Democrats, another saying they were acting like crazed lunatics in the wake of the Mueller report, and sharing a quote from Judicial Watch attacking FBI Director Christopher Wray, whom he appointed, that said the FBI has no leadership, the director is protecting the same gang. Still, Democrats rolling on with their many inquiries and now considering imposing fines on Trump officials who refuse to comply with congressional subpoenas.
Look, I think if you fine someone $25,000 a day to their person, until they comply, it gets their attention.
Well, President Trump and China's President Xi are both going to be in Japan at a G20 meeting. It's possible they could talk trade there, but that's not going to happen until late June. So it's likely that this could be an ongoing conflict, even though negotiations are technically still ongoing. The Chinese diplomats that were here trying to make a deal on Friday left without reaching that deal, guys.
It is likely, and as you mentioned, Trevor, we will see what the markets do today. Thank you, Trevor Alt in D.C. Now let's go over to Brad Milkey for more on how these tariffs could affect American businesses and how long this trade war could last. Brad.
Hey guys, yeah, these new tariffs went into effect on Friday, and negotiators left without a deal in sight. Well, now, as the markets get set to open, American businesses are getting ready to pay more. Remember, there were already sanctions on these goods from China, but they were at 10%. A lot of companies ate that cost, but now those tariffs are going up to 25%. I spoke to Mark Zandi, the chief economist at Moody's Analytics, and I asked him, how long do you expect the standoff to last?
Well, I hope it's days. I mean, if it's days, no big deal. These tariffs, the tariff hikes that the president just imposed on Friday, don't apply until the goods that are being shipped from China actually arrive at our ports, and that could be 3-4 weeks from now. So there's no real substantive effect for about a month, but if they're still in place a month from now, then I think we'll start to see the effects. And by the way, the world doesn't stand still. I think the Chinese are going to respond to this.
As for what that would look like, he said China could and likely will raise tariffs of its own, which would hurt American exporters. Or he said, and this is extreme, he said, imagine what would happen if China told all of its citizens not to buy iPhones anymore. We'll have a lot more on all this at Start Here later this morning. Listen on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcasting app. Janae, Kenneth?
Thank you, Brad. So let's turn now to the cruise from hell. Can we say that? 28 people must remain aboard a ship owned by the Church of Scientology after a confirmed case of the measles. They must remain quarantined on the free winds until today. They're still at risk of contracting the highly contagious disease.
Nearly 300 other crew members and passengers are free to leave the ship. The ship was previously quarantined in St. Lucia and arrived in the home port of Curacao a week ago. This all started after a crew member came down with the measles. That's quite a joke, because you get on a cruise to take in some Scientology.
And you're like, we've been stuck here.
This
people
is the
cannot
worst
leave. They're
thing.
quarantined.
Yeah.
20 people still remain on there. That's not a fun time. Also not a fun time, love bugs. They've made their hated return to Florida. These swarmed a house in Melbourne down there in Brevard County on the Space Coast. The invasions usually happen in May and September, leaving bug carcasses all over cars, homes, and just about everything else. They don't sting or bite. They just gross people out.
Yeah, remember those from the days in Orlando? That's shout out to Brevard County. I can appreciate that, Kenneth.
A lot better than stink bugs.
Absolutely.
So just take the love.
All the love. A founding member of the 90s hip-hop group The Fugees has been indicted on campaign finance charges linked to the 2012 presidential election.
Federal prosecutors say Pras Michelle conspired with a fugitive Malaysian businessman to funnel over $1 million into campaign accounts believed to be in support of President Obama's re-election. The overall scheme allegedly involved moving $21 million from foreign accounts. Michelle has pleaded not guilty. The Obama campaign has not been accused of wrongdoing. A new mom's pre-labor lunch nearly got her in trouble with the law.
Elizabeth Dominguez was about to have her son last week in Western New York when doctors took a urine sample. Then she tested positive for opiates. So she says she doesn't do drugs and put in a frantic call to her husband, who asked her what she'd eaten that day. Dominguez says she had a sandwich and a poppy seed bagel. Well, those poppy seeds turned up the false positive. They're derived from opium plants, and it turned her into a modern-day version of Elaine from Seinfeld.
I found out why I was testing positive for opium. Poppy seeds!
Poppy seeds!
Yep, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So back to Dominguez. The hospital had to call Child Protective Services because of the positive test. They monitored her son for withdrawal symptoms just in case he obviously had none. Ooh. One doctor says just 1 to 3 of those bagels can turn up that positive result.
So wait, so now you're giving me false positive for drugs and you're leaving all those seeds in my teeth? I'm just going to leave the poppy seed.
Which is worse?
I'm going to leave the poppy
seed bagels alone.
I'm going to leave them alone.
Well, coming
just
up
like that cup of coffee.
All of it. Forget your breakfast this morning. Coming up, the latest in the Varsity Blues college bribery scandal.
Actress Felicity Huffman expected to plead guilty. The sentence she may be facing after this.
Hey, welcome back. Now to actress Felicity Huffman facing a judge today in that college admission scandal. She's expected to plead guilty to paying thousands of dollars to boost her daughter's SAT score. This morning, Desperate Housewives star Felicity Huffman is heading back to court to plead guilty for her role in a college admissions scam. Huffman admits to paying $15,000 to have an SAT proctor correct the answers on her daughter's exam, improving her score by 400 points. Facing 20 years in prison, Huffman agreed to a plea deal and expressed deep regret and shame in a statement. Prosecutors are now recommending a much lighter sentence. She's expected to spend 4 to 10 months behind bars.
But ultimately, the judge could find her to be a good candidate for probation, meaning she gets off without any prison time at all.
Meanwhile, actress Lori Loughlin is choosing to fight the charges. The embattled star and her husband are accused of paying $500,000 to get their 2 daughters recruited to the USC crew team, even though neither of them had played the sport.
I can't imagine any defense attorney in their right mind who wouldn't be convincing Lori Loughlin right now and trying to convince her, you need to take the deal.
Court documents have previewed a trove of potential evidence, including emails and wiretapped calls between Loughlin, her husband, and this man, Rick Singer, the alleged mastermind of the scheme, who has since become a cooperating witness.
It is a huge gamble to take it to trial, but ultimately, sometimes someone feels that if they're going to go down, they want to go down swinging.
Loughlin and the other parents who are fighting the charges are due back in court next month.
So let's go across the pond now to the London Bureau, where Julia McFarlane is following the latest on a heroin rescue in Africa, where 2 French soldiers were killed in the raid to free tourists who have been held hostage for nearly a month. Julia, what do we know right now?
Hey guys, good morning. So this is a really curious story. This happened on Friday. What we heard is all of a sudden French special forces carried out a raid in northern Burkina Faso. That's a landlocked country in Central Africa. It's just south of Mali. And what came out of that was 2 French hostages were rescued. They had been kidnapped whilst in a national park near Benin, which is across the border. And also a South Korean woman and an unnamed US citizen who we now know is a woman in her 60s. We don't know anything other than she's a private citizen. So these 4 people were rescued by French special forces, but extraordinarily, the Americans did not realize that she had been missing. until Friday, and very, very murky details on this story. She is now being briefed, according to sources telling ABC News. The Americans want to find out what she was doing in Burkina Faso and what happened when she was kidnapped. There had been fears that the group may have been taken into neighboring countries like Mali and sold on as hostages to other militant groups. So good thing they were rescued just in time.
Good thing. And Julia, a scary moment in Myanmar when a plane made an emergency landing without its front landing gear. We saw these images and they are crazy, but everyone is okay.
Yeah, so we were watching this story over the weekend, and you can see the really incredible photos. I just want to point out quickly while we're looking at this plane that the passengers and the crew, as they're walking off, you see a lot of them smiling. They're actually quite in good spirits, despite what must have been a very terrifying landing. Now, what happened was the plane's landing gear had malfunctioned. It's an Embraer 190 jet. The pilot realized something was up when the landing declare wasn't deploying, and he had to dump fuel to make the plane lighter. He circled around air traffic control a couple of times to make sure that the wheels weren't coming down, and in the end he knew he had to land the plane without its front wheels. So what we saw was this plane scraping down the tarmac of the runway, smoke going everywhere through the cabin, but as it turns out, it was a textbook emergency landing. This kind of thing, it all went according to plan, and the crew and the passengers were never really in any harm.
Wow.
But incredible pictures.
A lot of skill there.
Absolutely.
Thankfully, no one was.
Textbook, but I would have been like in a book going, I don't know what to do.
Chapter was this? What chapter
I don't
was
remember this.
Yeah.
Hey, before you go, so some people are not feet people, but how can you not like feet by seeing these new images of baby Archie and those adorable, adorable feet?
Baby feet. Like the phrase, the pitter-patter of tiny feet when you know someone's expecting. This is a really, really cute Instagram post that was on the Sussex Royal Instagram account. Now, of course, Meghan is a British royal now, but she did post this beautiful little image to mark Mother's Day, which is being celebrated not just in the US, but also in a number of Commonwealth countries. And she lists them. And we think that she may have penned the caption because of a, shall I say, erroneous spelling of the word honour in the Americanized version of the spelling, which we all know is the incorrect version of the word.
Don't come with the shade this morning.
Guys, I haven't had much sleep. Guys, I just want to point out the photo is so beautiful because in the background, which we believe was taken at Frogmore Cottage, in the background are forget-me-nots, which were Princess Diana's favorite flower. Now in the post, it's very sweet, isn't it? And she also, so she writes, paying tribute to all mothers today, and she has a little quote from a poet, a really talented poet, Nayyirah Waheed. You guys definitely should check her out if you don't know her. A quote from one of her poems called Lands, and it says, "My mother was my first country, the first place I ever lived." Really, really
very
lovely
symbolic
Mother's Day post.
Very beautiful. Hopefully tomorrow we'll get a picture of just the hands.
Or maybe the face. Maybe you can just see all the baby.
It's going to be piece by piece of the baby.
You know, Julia, feet are real cute until suddenly we're staring down at Kenneth's claws, and then it's all bets are off. Julia, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Guys.
Let's get a check of our notifications. Starting with this couple who got married on the subway because of all the places in New York City to say your vows.
Like sleeping there.
This subway, right?
I'm pretty sure New Yorkers love this. They just like, get out of the way.
Right, we got places
congrats
to
to
go.
that happy couple because they were on the express train, right? So they could stay on there longer.
Yeah.
Not have to deal with all the announcements from now arriving.
Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
You may kiss the bride. All right, so don't try this at home. This Florida man feeling the breeze, standing up through a sunroof. Yeah, that's the Florida story right there.
70-year-old man down I-4.
'Cause I'm free.
Had the car in cruise control, told the officer who picked him up for reckless driving that he'd rather go to jail than return home to his wife.
Oh, snap.
She better hope she doesn't get a hold of that arrest report or this show.
You know, I used to say when I worked in Florida that the reason I love Florida so much is because literally if a person was riding on the hood of their car, you would find about it literally that day because of the sunshine laws, the public record laws. And look, prime example.
There you have it.
All right, so bear eats car. That's what happened. This is what this looks like when a bear ate a car. He broke into the car, Happened in Colorado. The black bear crawled inside. The door closed behind him.
Oof.
7 hours that bear was trapped.
7 hours. I'm sure he knocked on the door
And said,
asking
"Let
someone
me
to let
outta
him
here."
out. And when no one came, he said, all right, I'll show you.
I'll show you.
I'll show you.
He's trying to put it in, try to crank it up.
Yeah.
Start the engine.
Pour the keys.
So
Where's the cream filling?
What? Is that a bear? That's how your bear sounds?
Yeah.
So the neighbor finally let him out. And as you would imagine, this car is totaled.
Oh, what a shame.
Speaking of animals and cars.
Yeah, I was gonna do it.
Nope, beat ya.
Speaking of animals and cars, a dog behind the wheel. The dog can't drive, but he sure can honk a horn.
Oh, that's an actual dog.
He said, get out here. It's time to go. Got me waiting all day. Look at his face.
It's time for
Sick
my
of
walk.
waiting.
I need my puppy chow.
You think I'm playing?
I need my kibbles and bits.
Hand just on the horn, not going anywhere.
Vroom, vroom. All right, so that's pretty cute there.
It is cute.
I like it a lot.
All right, here's what to watch out for today. The Centers for Disease Control will come out with an update on the measles outbreak. It's already recorded more than 700 cases in 23 states so far this year.
And the Supreme Court convenes today, beginning a 6-week session to release final opinions on several cases that could potentially impact everything from the way voting districts are drawn to Native American reservation boundaries and hunting grounds, as well as whether the census should include a question on citizenship.
And President Trump will host the Prime Minister of Hungary, Viktor Orban, in the Oval Office, a meeting about which senators from both sides of the aisle have expressed concern, citing the close relationship between that prime minister and Moscow, as well as declining press freedom. Plus, don't forget to tune into The Debrief for an update on all our top stories and the briefing room for a breakdown of the latest headlines in politics. Stick around on ABC News Live for the Start Here podcast, and we will see you tomorrow.